Hey everyone, Gill Gross here. Post-match, Jannik Sinner versus Learner Tien, Beijing 2025 final. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video. Sinner takes care of business, wins it 6-2, 6-2, and takes the Beijing trophy for a second time in his career. Third title of 2025 for Sinner, which feels like a low number, but obviously that's just down to how many times he's lost finals to Alcaraz, and of course the suspension may be eating away on that a little bit as well, because it has been another really consistent, phenomenal year for Sinner, where you expect that almost every tournament he enters, he's going to be in the final or he's going to win it. Sinner already has as many hard court titles as Daniil Medvedev, which is a number that really kind of jumped out at me. This was his 18th hardcourt title. Jannik is now 63-0 against players outside the top 10 on hardcourts, dating back to just about 2 years ago when he lost to Ben Shelton in Shanghai. So there really haven't been any poor losses on hardcourts for 2 years now. This was his 9th consecutive hardcourt final. And I shouted out Alcaraz's 90% win rate on Monday Match Analysis. Haven't seen that? Check out that episode after you're done listening or watching this, please. Sinner's at 89%, so he's not that far off. Learner Tien found himself in his first career final at the ATP 500 level. He's had a fantastic 2025 after spending most of last year at the challenger level. It's been an impressive transition for Learner, especially considering how many wins against top players he's been able to notch, including 2 against Daniil Medvedev. 1 came this week. May have gotten some injury luck in his match against Lorenzo Musetti. But on paper, he's beaten Musetti, Shelton, Medvedev, Zverev. It's a very impressive haul for Tien this year, and this was his biggest run to date. I found that in this match, he just couldn't get comfortable trading as he usually does, and that to me is the strength in Tien's game. He's just really good at keeping the ball deep, moving it around, staying very consistent, kind of eating away at your legs. It's not pushing, it's not passive necessarily, but it's a lot of just maneuvering the ball around the court and playing the long game and kind of extending rallies where he's applying a little bit of pressure. Honestly, it's somewhat Murray-like. He's applying a little bit of pressure, but he's not going to find the knockout blow. He's not going to land the knockout blow as quickly as a lot of the other players on tour. But I just found with Sinner's surplus of power, Tien just ended up feeling too much pressure in those exchanges. Sinner able to create a lot of damage from ordinarily neutral positions, and that just puts Tien in a situation where he was playing, too much defense. Unless he kind of ramped it up, he started to try to go bigger to avoid getting behind, and he definitely lost his typical consistency as a result. So in those exchanges, Tien had some really good moments in the baseline exchanges. I think he's a tremendous baseliner, but Sinner's power was pretty disruptive in terms of Tien trying to just get comfortable from the back of the court and kind of excel in the consistent probing baseline game that he usually implements. Obviously, there also aren't a lot of easy points for Tien, and I think existentially, that's kind of a bigger conversation around Learner. In terms of getting overpowered from the back, that's not a problem that Tien is going to encounter on a regular basis. That's really a Sinner problem, especially considering there's no safe spot with Jannik, and Tien might hit like his stock forehand cross-court rally ball and get hurt off of that by Jannik, even if he doesn't lose a ton of depth. And that's something like that you just don't normally see. It's really a Sinner problem. But the idea that nothing comes easy for Learner, that's a wider conversation about his abilities to sustain himself as a top player long-term. And I do want to share some thoughts on that because, of course, He served only 41% in the first set in this final. That doesn't help. But overall, the unreturned serve percentage, Sinner sat at 40%. That's combined first and second. And Tien was at 16%. And this is somewhat typical. You see this in Tien matches, which means that he basically needs to thoroughly outplay his opposition in rallies in order to win matches, which can be a tall task. Tien can actually do it quite a bit because he's such a great baseliner. But you go up against Jannik Sinner, and now you're really climbing Mount Everest. The point I really want to make here, because what I just said is not breaking any ground, here's the point I want to make. I do not think that Learner Tien is doomed by his height. I don't think that long-term he is capped at his current serving level where he's just going to be a lightweight server for the rest of his career, and there's nothing he's going to be able to do about it. Okay, he's not 5'7", he's not 5'8", he's like 5'11". I don't think he's doomed by his height. I look at the technique, and I see some stuff. Not necessarily stuff that is super inefficient or like flat out wrong, okay? It's still professional level serve technique, but there are some areas where I think he loses some power. One of them, and this is a big one, it seems like there's some, he's lefty, it seems like, I'm just going to do it righty, there's some racket drop leak. So the racket starts kind of drifting behind his back ear, if you will, before he really starts the explosive and the violent action, and you lose a little bit of power there. I don't see a lot of shoulder tilt. I don't see the front hip tilting up very far. So like, again, I'm going to do it righty because it's more natural for me. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see it. But like, you know, those shoulders, there should be a steep tilt there. And that front hip, which is my hip on this side, on my tossing arm, that should really get inside the court and start to point up. And that's just about loading the big muscles so that you can be more explosive and more powerful. I think the legs can load more as well, especially the back leg. I think Tien can load it up and get some more juice out of that. So I think there's more power to be had there, to be extracted, if you will. Now, Tien does hit his spots. He pitches a good game. He could kind of get by as like a Adrian Manarino-like server where he's kind of cutting the ball out wide and using his leftiness. And honestly, the risk, okay, it's not so easy. The risk, if Learner starts to implement some of the things that I just talked about, is it might be harder for him to be very, very precise. But long-term, I think it's something that would probably be worthwhile for him. And I got a chance to ask him a question earlier this year, and I've tried to kind of listen to the things that he and his coaches have said over the course of this year. It does sound like Tien is by no means content with being more of a return-oriented, lightweight serving player. I do think they're trying to simplify a little bit and become more damaging on the serve +1. So I wanted to say that. All right, another thing that I think should be covered, Sinner and the variety, the big storyline coming out of the U.S. Open, some of the things that Jannik Sinner said after losing to Carlos Alcaraz, then he wanted to look towards improving his variety, something that I like to point this out. It's not the first time that Jannik has sort of focused on that. In 2023, there was a lot of talk, fall of 2023, there was a lot of talk about improving that aspect. This wouldn't be the first time that Sinner has refocused on the effectiveness of the forehand drop shot and the frequency of use of the forehand drop shot. And none of this is completely new. But based on what he said after losing to Alcaraz in that U.S. Open final, of course, we're looking at, is Jannik forcing more variety into his game? Didn't see it, to be honest. He won 6-2, 6-2. But yeah, I didn't see it. He went to net in the first set twice. He hit one drop shot on the forehand. It was a bad drop shot. He lost the point. In the second set, he missed an overhead. He was heavy-handed on a drop shot retrieval where he chipped it deep of the baseline. I thought he did come forward a few times in the second set and put away some easy volleys and some high volleys and a smash. So there was that. But ultimately, I didn't note any very impressive moments from a variety standpoint for Sinner, and obviously he didn't need it. But the simple stuff was working really well. Tien had 2 chances in this match to break serve at least, and I'd like to highlight them. Early in the second set, that was the first break chance for Tien. Sinner had an excellent first serve and put away a floating return on his forehand. He got out of the game with 2 cheap points after that, unreturned. Second break point he faced, this was at 3-2. Another target hit on the first serve. He went out wide, flat out wide. He loves that serve. Set up a mid-court forehand. He went inside in. Didn't quite put it away because Tien anticipated, but it set up an overhead. Sinner got it done on the smash. He held again with 2 more unreturned serves. First serve out of the game. So thought Sinner's serve was lethal. Felt his forehand was performing at a really high level all week. And it was very much business as usual for Jannik, who continues to be a winning machine in these sorts of scenarios. So now he's on to Shanghai. I did preview Shanghai on Monday Match Analysis, so do check that out. I also have a special interview edition of Monday Match Analysis coming out tomorrow, a commentary on the modern game and the evolution of tennis with Jimmy Arias. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.